Got it. Yes. All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good evening, although it's pretty bright out there still. As some of you remember, we've been talking about housing in our district dialogues in the last couple of months. We'll hear more about housing today, about the work of an important not-for-profit organization helping our neighbors to become homeowners. And I expect that you've heard about Habitat for Humanity. We are associated with President Jimmy Carter. But there's more to Habitat than that. Here's a short description of it, clipped from Wikipedia. Where else? So, Wikipedia, Habitat for Humanity International is a non-governmental, non-profit organization which was funded in 1976 by a couple, Millard and Linda Fuller. And Habitat for Humanity is a Christian organization. Its international headquarters are located in Americus, Georgia. It's, as of 2020, Habitat for Humanity operates in more than 70 countries. I didn't know that. I know that there are multiple habitats all over the United States. I haven't checked every state, but I know there's more than one in New Jersey where I used to live. There are two in our DMV area. We'll hear from one of those habitats today. And back to Wikipedia. Habitat has helped more than 35 million people construct, rehabilitate, or preserve homes since its founding in 1976. 35 million, wow. And as of 2013, Habitat was the largest not-for-profit builder in the world. I am still scratching my head about that, wow. Habitat relies on volunteer labor in order to construct simple and affordable homes with its partner families, important component. The homeowners, or rather future homeowners, are usually expected to put about 500 hours of sweat equity, get involved in building their future or other homes in the area. And then they buy the house at very affordable prices. And President Carter became involved with Habitat for Humanity in 1984 and has been its highest profile proponent. And he's been involved both in fundraising, publicity, as well as actually hands-on home building. So that's the Wikipedia with a few comments from Joanna. And I have personal experience with Habitat for Humanity. In 1990s, 2000s, while living in Princeton, New Jersey, I volunteered for Habitat for Humanity in Trenton, New Jersey. We built homes, mostly row houses, some duplexes, in the city that was crumbling. Old industrial city between dying industries, suburban flight. It was in trouble. So we were fortunate to have all the support of Trenton government. Yes, yes, please build. And yeah, you want those sites here as, sites for $1. Now, I believe that need for housing is as great in DC, affordable housing, as it was in New Jersey. But I also believe that obtaining properties to build housing is a much of a harder proposition around here. So we'll hear from Rachel Jones and Kat Shaub from Habitat for Humanity of DC and Northern Virginia about how you're managing it in DC. So over to you, ladies. Oh, and I meant to show you Mary, can we have just image for a moment of what was happening in Trenton? Yeah, okay. Row houses in Trenton, pretty much like Philly or Baltimore, in terms of how well they were standing up, more like Baltimore, lots of boarded up houses. And you see in one of the photos, pretty much empty houses and broken windows. We managed to build nice row houses, bottom left. And the one on the right, it happens to be a carpenter build when we had Carpenters Union volunteering and putting up, I think it was 4 row houses in a matter of a couple of weeks. And then the volunteers from, community and future homeowners were working on the sheetrock insulation, et cetera, et cetera. So it was wonderful to watch, but also sad to see we built on this block and the other block was crumbling away. Right. So back to Washington.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for that introduction. It means so much to be with you all tonight. So thank you so much for having us and allowing us to share a mission that we're so passionate about. I'll first introduce myself and then I'll pass it off to my colleague. And we do have a presentation, so I'll try to pull that up too. But my name is Rachel Jones, and I'm the volunteer and community engagement manager here with Habitat DC Nova. So I'm that point person for groups to get them connected with different volunteer opportunities that we have going on. Our primary ones being the Build Day that people typically think of that Joanna participated in New Jersey, as well as our Restore volunteer opportunity in Northern Virginia. And we'll explain a little bit more about that throughout the presentation. But I absolutely have loved, I just started end of August in this position, so still relatively new, and I've really enjoyed it. I instantly saw this job description and was really excited because I have worked in housing spaces and other nonprofits in the past and really enjoyed working with volunteers and all the enthusiasm that they bring for the mission. So it's been great to plug into Habitat for Humanity in this area and start mobilizing volunteers. I'll pass it off to Kat to introduce herself, and then I'll try to pull up this presentation. Let's see.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. To echo Rachel, it's great to be here with you. Thank you so much for sharing a part of your evening with us to talk about something that we think is one of the most pressing needs of our city and our nation. My name is Kat Shaub. I am our Vice President of Development, which is just a fancy way of saying I fundraise for our Habitat. I have been with Habitat DC Nova for just about 5 years now. I came here in 2018, but I was serving with a smaller Habitat in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I'm from, for a couple years prior to that. So it has been a very interesting experiment for me to see the differences between what housing need looks like here in our city compared to what it looks like in a more rural town. But the truth of the matter is that the need is everywhere. And that's why, as Joanna mentioned, we work in almost every country in the world and in every state. I think in Virginia, we have upwards of 40 affiliates who serve different localized communities in Virginia. And then we also, of course, have DC. And Joanna mentioned that there is a second affiliate in this area. They serve the Metro Maryland portion of the DMV. So we're really excited to be here with you tonight. As I mentioned just before everyone got on, our presentation is meant to be a guide for our conversation. So if you have questions or if a topic sticks out to you, please do stop us. We would love to engage and make this a very engaging opportunity for all of us.
Definitely, yeah. Feel free to interrupt me, put questions in the chat, whatever, as we go through this. So a little bit about the way Habitat for Humanity is structured. You've already touched on this a lot, Joanna, but Habitat for Humanity International is based in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia, And again, they oversee a lot of the operations globally in different countries. And then across the states, we have thousands of affiliates that work independently of one another. So the programs and systems of one affiliate may change depending on the area and the environment. And so when you go to another affiliate, it may look very different. So yeah, as Kat said, Virginia has something of 40 affiliates, and we were just at a conference with all of them, which is really informative. And it was interesting to see how the landscape of housing changes just across the state in more rural areas versus our very metropolitan area. Yet we all come together under one unified mission statement, which is listed here, which is that we believe in a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And we have brought that down to our affiliate specifically. And here's our mission statement. Habitat DC Nova's mission is to reduce poverty and housing instability in the National Capital Area by creating and preserving decent, affordable, and energy efficient homes for local residents with low and moderate incomes. So here's a brief history of our affiliate. We have been around for about 30 years. So in 1988, the DC Habitat for Humanity was founded. And then in 1990, Habitat for Humanity of Northern Virginia was founded. And we operated as two independent affiliates for about 30 years. And just this time last year, merged as one affiliate, which is really, really exciting, hoping to be able to help more and more families in this region through that merger. So now we are named Habitat for Humanity of Washington, DC and Northern Virginia. Mouthful, so we are Habitat DC Nova for short. So we are kind of based all over the area. We have an office in DC as well as Alexandria. We have our restores out in Chantilly, Herndon, and Alexandria. We're building in Alexandria in Ward 8 of DC. So we cover the map. Our region is the District of Columbia, Arlington County, Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, Falls Church, and Alexandria. Our mission is to provide safe and affordable housing for local families in that entire area. And here's a quick snapshot of some of the families that we do serve. They do have to meet an economic threshold. They're what we call the missing middle. So they make a little too much to qualify for government assistance, but not enough to pay for homes at market value, which you can imagine for this area is quite expensive, living in one of the most expensive housing markets in the nation. So they make 30 to 80% of the median family income, which is about $129,000 for a family of four. So they make approximately $44,000 to $88,000. And that's one of the criteria in terms of being a partner family. And we'll elaborate a little bit more on some of the other criteria a little later on. So I thought this was a really great breakdown of some of the local need and how the affordable housing space looks in our specific region. So Habitat for Humanity International has their office in Atlanta, in Georgia, and they also have an office here in DC that works in terms of advocacy and all that. And they also provide great snapshots of the different regions across the states and really evaluate the affordable housing needs in those regions. So these statistics are pulled from their report that they put together. But this shows that 1 in 6 DC households spend more than half of their income on housing, which is wild. And this breaks down a little bit more about what that looks like. So about 79% of renters and homeowners that are earning less than $50,000 are paying over 30% of their income on housing. And that's 35% for all incomes are paying over 30%. And we consider 30% to be that threshold of affordability. So if you're spending more than 30% of your income, that's considered unaffordable on housing expenses. So we really work with our partners' families to ensure that that number that they're spending on housing costs is below that 30% of their income. And then you see here for over 50%, very staggering numbers as well. 55% of renters and homeowners earning less than $50,000 are paying over 50%, and that's 17% for all incomes. And so when families are putting so much emphasis, and rightly so, naturally very concerned about meeting monthly payments to cover this cost of unaffordability, a lot of things, basic needs are simply not met. They're not able to pay for food, childcare, safe housing that's clean and not infested and not mold ridden. So we see a lot of families that are in unsafe and overcrowded situations. And when we're able to bring down that housing cost to below 30%, they're able to be more civically engaged in their community and find that childcare that they made really invest in their families and connect them with different activities in the community rather than be overly burdened with the concern of paying monthly payments. So we've really seen that as we connect with past partner families, we've seen their ability to really grow and save and invest in their own education too, moving on, which is really exciting.
Rachel, can you hang out on this slide for 1 second?
Yeah.
Awesome. So something that I wanted to point out here, I'm sure that all of us in some way, by having these dialogues with Joanna, have talked about DC government's push for affordable housing and how important it is to the mayor and to DC government here to have more folks have more options for housing. And something that has stuck out to me in the 5 years that I have been here doing this work is when I started in 2018, 1 in 4 DC households was spending more than half of their income on housing. In 2019, it became 1 in 5, and now it's 1 in 6. And so when we talk about the need for affordable housing, it can often be overwhelming. It is a huge problem, and it's a problem that doesn't have one solution. But when we work together, it works. We're finding ways, and we're seeing in the numbers that fewer and fewer people are spending. Judy, that's a great question. So Judy asked in the chat, how much of that is poorer people moving out of DC? So COVID was a huge impact factor with this. A lot of people moved out of the city because they could no longer afford to be here without a service industry job. I don't have an exact number on how that contributes, but I would say it probably contributes significantly. I will say what we have seen is a huge uptick in folks who are qualifying for housing programs and going through those programs faster. So for example, in COVID, DC Habitat had 14 homes that we were trying to sell, and it took us 2 years to sell those 14 homes because folks would lose income, would lose their financing, lost their job, and then we would have to work with them to get back to stability, or put them back on the waiting list until they were able to qualify again. But that's a lot faster now. We're seeing people fly through our programs, and they come in and they're in their home within 3 to 4 months, which is very, very fast. So I think that it's, of course, people have been pushed out of the city and displaced because of COVID and because of the housing factor of COVID. But I also think that you've seen a concerted effort to make our programs faster, to put people into stability quicker. And that's something that we're seeing in our programs, at least.
Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. This slide also breaks it down in a different way. But looking at this, the wage needed to afford a fair market rent for a 2-bedroom home in DC, working 40 hours a week, is $70,600 per year, with that minimum wage of $33 an hour. And you can see the gap because the minimum wage currently is $16.10 an hour. So there's a significant gap there. And the same here, an income needed to purchase a median priced home in the DC area is about $148,000 $685 a year, and that median income is $66,500. So there's a significant gap, and this shows that shortage of homes that are affordable is about 12,884. So we got a lot of work to do here at Habitat in building those homes. And you can see too here, the percentage of entry-level homes that are affordable is 37%, and that number is going down. So we got affordable housing options, they're decreasing more and more. And y'all have done a long study of race and justice and how that intersects with issues in the city here in DC. So I wanted to touch on some of this. You all are probably already experts in this area and could teach me a thing or two. So I'd love to hear about that at some point. But here is a staggering number that I found with the Urban Institute. They did a study in which they found that white households in the DC area have a net worth that's 81 times greater than Black households. So in 2013 and 2014, the typical white household in DC had a net worth of $284,000, while Black American households, in contrast, had a net worth of $3,500. I did do a double take on that statistic because it's just astounding. And there's so many reasons as to why that is. One of them being that white residents in the district are much more likely than Black residents to own homes. Over 55% of Black households do not own homes. And it's estimated that if Black and Latino families owned homes at the same rate that white households do, that wealth gap would be reduced by about 30%. So that just goes to show how home ownership means so much in terms of closing that wealth gap and giving people that home equity. And they did find that education is not necessarily a factor in the reason for that gap, that white individuals that had the same level of education as Black households were still outperforming in tenfold. And another reason for this, home values are significantly lower for Black families. So a typical value for a Black household in DC is about $250,000, which is about 2/3 of the home value for white households. And then Black residents have fewer good options for capital. So during the housing crisis in 2008, they were often targeted for those subprime mortgages. So about 20% were more likely to lose their homes compared to their white homeowner counterparts. And then, of course, as y'all looked at the makeup of the different neighborhoods, I believe, in your last housing discussion and the impact of redlining and segregation and all of that, you see that a lot of this disparity is due to 200 years worth of cities' racist laws and policies that have compounded and caused this to happen. So you've seen that way back in the 1840s with the Black codes that happened and limited the ability for Black people to own successful businesses and enter certain professional opportunities. You also saw this in the 1870s when land in the district was redistributed to the South, and a lot of freed Black people were left without opportunities for home ownership. And there are different neighborhoods too, like Berry Farms in 1940, that was a predominantly Black enclave in the city that was just demolished to make room for a highway and for other public housing options. And that's not an isolated event. That has happened in multiple areas throughout the city. And this is seen through the urban renewal as that continues to unfold in the 1960s and 70s and present day. We were talking about gentrification before everybody hopped on the call too with Joanna. So this is ever unfolding, and we're seeing how a lot of these racist policies are playing out, and we're doing our best as DC, as Habitat DC Nova, to combat that in different ways. So one of those being, we prioritize in terms of our criteria local families. So you have to have lived in the area for about a year in order to qualify for a home. And so that ensures that we're investing in communities that are already present. And we ensure that the property is affordable as we're looking into new options such as community land trust that ensures that the land will be affordable for perpetuity, and the homeowners will still gain equity, which is a really great option for that as well. And also, we'll talk about this a little later, but we also, in terms of our new builds, we have our home repair program too. So we really invest in the homes and the Black folk and other folk that are living in their homes to ensure that they can age in place, and they're not burdened by the cost of repairs and having to move out, that they can stay where they're presently located. So as a result, approximately 92% of our families we serve are families of color, which contributes to reducing that longstanding disparity in racial wealth equity. Collectively, as two affiliates, we've been able to help over the course of our time. We've helped about 400 plus families through critical home repair, as well as that new build program as well. So that comes to about 1,600 individuals. And we have some really exciting current projects that we're working on right now. So as I mentioned, we're building in 2 locations currently. We are building 3 single family homes that are our largest to date, which is really exciting. They're 4-bedroom and they're located off Groveton Street off the Richmond Highway Route 1 corridor in Alexandria, Virginia. And we're really excited. We're nearing the end of this build too. So our homeowners will start to move in midsummer or so. And that's been really great. They've, as Joanna mentioned, our homeowners contribute about, for our affiliates, 200 to 300 sweat equity hours, as opposed to the 500. But they are out on site and they're volunteering alongside our volunteers right now. And we're really excited to dedicate these homes so that they can move in sooner rather than later. We are still hosting volunteers too. And this is the current state, our current photos that I recently took probably last week or so. They are doing a lot of priming and painting. The drywall is up. We will likely be doing some probably landscaping, installing fixtures and all that in the next couple of weeks. So it's very, very exciting. We build on this Wednesday and Fridays with volunteers. We rely heavily on volunteer labor to come out. We also have individual opportunities for people to volunteer, and we rely heavily on dedicated crew leaders who come out at least twice a month to guide volunteers through this experience. And construction staff is there too to help guide the process. But yeah, we rely a lot on volunteers, as Joanna mentioned. And we have this other project here in Ward 8 in the Skylands neighborhood of Southeast DC. We have 8 townhomes going up here, and we'll likely continue construction through the rest of the year at this site. We build Wednesday through Friday with volunteers, at least coming out 2 to 3 times a week. And we're really excited to be back in this neighborhood. So when the DC Habitat was founded about 30 years ago, in 1995, we built 34 townhomes in the surrounding community. So it's been great to form those relationships and then come back and still see some of the same homeowners present and continue to build that and have them check in and all of that. But we're really excited about this development and having more and more volunteers. We haven't selected the families for these homes quite yet. We're still in the family selection process for these. And here are recent photos. So we've had some volunteer groups out, which has been really fun, installing that drywall, doing some insulation, as well as caulking. This is the current state of it. If you were to go out today, you'd probably see it looking something like this. But it's really coming along. It's fun to see the progress over the course of, since I started in August to present day. It's really, really exciting. Another thing we pride ourselves on here at Habitat DC Nova is our sustainability efforts. So we really work to make the National Capital Area greener by having all of our construction be Earthcraft certified. And what that means is we work to install energy efficient appliances and windows, reduce the construction waste and recycle any scraps, implement stormwater runoff prevention and low impact landscaping designs, and improve that indoor air quality as well. And a lot of the homes, like the ones in Skyland, will be wired for solar panels to be installed so that homeowners can request that and get tax credit for that, which is really exciting, just to reduce their costs of utility, but also, of course, to make the impact on the environment a lot better. So we're very, very excited about that. I know that's a lot of information, so feel free to stop me anytime. I'll pass it off to Kat too to talk more about our home repair program though.
Before I go on, do we want to break for questions about Habitat's homeownership program, where we build, how we build, how we're incorporating, you know, racial justice work into the work of home building? Yeah, Judy.
I'm so curious about the access with universal design. Are you using universal design? And you know, looking at some of the the townhomes, multi-story homes. I mean, those are not the folks that we work with are looking for single, are moving out of multi-level homes and into single level homes. And I'm just curious if that's something that's sort of on the radar. Is that
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we're a little bit behind. We are just starting to have conversations about universal design. As you can imagine, and as Joanna mentioned earlier, it's really hard to come by sites that are available to us that can accommodate a universal design. So this Skyland build that's up on the screen right now, you're looking at the front of these homes and they're going to be 2-story on the front. When we got this site, where the homes were was a ravine. So off the back, it's actually 4 stories high. And there's a basement in here that you can't see. Our last 3 sites out in DC have been this way, where there is a 20 to 24 foot drop off the back. And we have had to figure out, how do we make these accessible? How do we accommodate a different level of need and mobility and long-term stay here? So what we've been doing in DC is at least one of these units will be ADA compliant and have aging in place ability, such that there will be room on the first floor for a full bathroom and stay ability. I'm not sure which unit it is, but we've been trying to incorporate at least one in our DC builds. In Northern Virginia, where we have land that is a little bit more spread out, albeit more expensive, we're doing this way better. So the 3 homes that Rachel showed in Groveton, all 3 of those are fully ADA accessible and have a first floor that is fully accommodated. So full bathroom on the first floor, extra bedroom on the first floor. They'll also have ramps. So in addition to front stairs, they will have ramps, and they have parking pad driveways that can go straight into that. So a lot of it right now, we weigh that question of density and how much we can build and how many people we can house with long-term accessibility. And it's a hard question because some folks, we want to do it. Some sites we just can't. We could definitely be doing a better job of it in sites that can accommodate it. And this is a great opportunity, like Rachel and I are also here to learn and take this conversation back to our affiliate of what folks who live in this area are experiencing, what you would like to see. So it's a really great question. The short answer is we are thinking about it. We're a little behind, but we're on our way. Joanna, yeah.
Somewhat related question. How many families are multi-generational? I'm finding it hard to imagine senior putting sweat equity into construction and then, needing a wheelchair accessible bathroom. So
Yep.
how does that work out? And the parallel question is where your volunteers come from, how you recruit them, and who shows up.
Yeah. So I'll answer the first part, and then Rachel, do you want to handle?
Yeah.
So pretty much all of our families are multi-generational. And if they aren't multi-generational when they move in, they are at some point in the life of their mortgage. So with COVID, so this is a great example. With COVID, we saw a lot of children from college who are in college moving back in. And we also saw a lot of parents moving in with their children as well, because they needed additional, assistance in a world in which they were stuck inside. So a lot of them are multi-generational. When it comes to sweat equity, we try to be as accommodating as we can, which is a diplomatic way of saying, if you're not able, we're not going to make you. And a lot of the times families really want to do it. Homeowners really want to do it, even if they're not able. And they will recruit a family member to help participate. But we have other avenues to complete sweat equity that is not just the building. So we do financial education, financial literacy classes, both before and after purchase. We have a lot of homeowners who volunteer their time to speak at Habitat events similar to this. We have a lot of homeowners who volunteer at other places doing a different kind of work, and we recognize that as part of their sweat equity, because an investment anywhere in the community is still an investment in the community. And we want to honor that. So it's a great question. We see, trying to think of, in the 3 homes that we are building in Alexandria, one of them, and we'll probably share this story more at length later, but her name is Stacy. She has 3 adult sons who are living with her, and she co-purchased her home with her oldest adult son. And they are doing that together because she wanted him to be able to, achieve the gains from that as well. And one of their adult sons is wheelchair bound. He has cerebral palsy, so he will always be wheelchair bound. And she and the son who co-purchased with her are both home health aides, so that they could learn. They made caring for him their profession. And it speaks a lot to the reliance that families of low incomes have within the family unit that I think a lot of families with higher incomes take for granted.
Right. Yeah. And then there's grandmas and grandkids and versus daycare. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your question though about volunteers is great. We are in a very fortunate position to have a lot of interest in volunteering with us here in the DC area. So we get several inquiries a day, but we rely a lot on corporate sponsored groups who come out and also pay to build. Their cost goes to offset the cost of building in a lot of ways, and allows us to provide these homes at an affordable rate. So we rely on corporate sponsors, but we also try to host at least 1 to 2 community builds a month. And we're able to solicit that through a listserv that we've accumulated over the years of people just opting into being interested in construction opportunities. And those fill up almost within the hour when they're posted, which is just incredible that there's that much interest in volunteering with us. So those are primary opportunities. And then we have our crew leader program, which I mentioned a little while ago. Our crew leaders, again, are dedicated volunteers that come out at least twice a month to come and build with us. And oftentimes you need more time to do that. So a lot of them are retired individuals here. And one of them is actually 90 years old and is still volunteering with us and has been for like the past 20 years. So anybody and everybody is welcome to volunteer with us. We greatly appreciate any way you want to get connected to our mission. And that's a great way to do it by volunteering.
Jay is also, he celebrated his 90th birthday on our site with us.
Amazing.
and he runs circles around all of us.
He
which
does.
shouldn't surprise us because Jay is out on site 3 times a week and Rachel and I are in an office sitting in our chairs 3 times a week or more, but it's awesome. It's a really, really
Yeah.
cool program.
He's been amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So thank you, Rachel, for going over history of Habitat DC Nova and what our home buyer program looks like. We're also going to talk a little bit about repairing homes and not just building new ones. And the reason that this is so important is because we live in a place where there is less and less land available to build new things. And so to make people have a place to stay and live, what we look at is homes that are already affordable and families who are already in homes that work for them that just need a little bit of help. So in 2017, we partnered up with the Department on Aging and Community Living here in the district to become a partner with their Safe at Home program. And Safe at Home is specifically designed to increase mobility in the home, as well as prevent falls, which we all know can be horrific and have really immense outcomes. So what Habitat does is we go in with a licensed occupational therapist and they do an evaluation with the homeowner. The homeowners that we work with are either adults with disabilities or seniors who all qualify as low income. And we do a walkthrough with the occupational therapist to figure out what the need is in the home, what kind of accommodations the homeowner wants or doesn't want, because there is still an element of choice. We are willing to make recommendations, of course, but there is an element of choice in your own home. And then Habitat comes in and does the repairs that are discussed to provide those accommodations. So a lot of what we do is installing grab bars in bathrooms, doing seat risers for toilets, installing handrails on front steps, installing ramps, and sometimes even installing stair lifts that can take folks from one floor to another floor if needed. I think we maybe spend at most $6,000 a house, and folks are able to stay in their homes for years and years and years longer. Because they are safe. We have met people who were not necessarily unable to go from floor to floor, but were scared to go from floor to floor because they just didn't have something to hold on to that they thought would help them. And small accommodations like that can really make all the difference. And from Habitat's perspective, not only are we keeping homes on the market that are affordable, but it's also about what we're preventing from happening. That's really important here. And 2 things happen. The first is folks get to stay not just in their homes, which are affordable to them, but in their communities of support where they know their neighbors. They've usually lived in their homes for upwards of 25 to 30 years, and they feel safe there. And that sense of belonging, preserving that is really, really important to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe and stable. And as a result of that, we're also preventing gentrification. So this happened to my grandparents, actually. I'll use them as an example. My grandparents, I'm from rural Lancaster, Pennsylvania, were living in a massive farmhouse, multi-story, and they were living on the first floor of it. And they decided, we don't want all this space anymore. We don't need it. We don't go upstairs. We don't want to do it. And so they decided to move into an assisted living facility that could serve their needs. And their home, within a month of sale, was bought by a developer and razed to the ground. And on top of it, they built luxury condominiums. And no one from that community is going to be able to afford to move into those. Only new people with more money from outside the community are going to move in. So the same thing happens here in our city. If, a senior neighbor or a disabled neighbor moves out of their house because they can't afford to live there, or it's in such bad shape that they need something safer, the first person who's going to have the opportunity to buy that is someone who wants to put a high rise on that block. And that can really, really destroy and destabilize a community. Sometimes it can be really good. Sometimes it can be a good thing to have affordable options moving in, and a lot of them at one time. But sometimes it isn't. And so when we repair these homes, we're preventing that from happening. We're helping people stay in a place of safety and belonging, and we're helping them be safe in their homes, which is awesome. Any questions about home repair? Awesome. This is my favorite little map. I love the colors. It's probably very hard to read, so I apologize, but I will help. Habitat has worked in almost every ward in the city. We're getting there. We're trying so hard. If you're ever in wards 2, 3, or 4 and you see a vacant lot, my phone number is listed at the end of this presentation. Give me a call. We worked extensively east of the river, which is where land has tended to be most affordable and accessible to us. But something that we care about a lot is expanding that opportunity to all parts of the district.
Right.
Judy and Mike Canning in the chat have asked, how are families chosen for homes or repairs? It's a really great question. So the two programs have two different sets of criteria. To purchase a home through Habitat, you have to meet 3 qualifications. The first is you have to be income qualified. So you have to make less than 80% of the area median income, which is a federal guideline of income. So that is the local area has a median income from everyone, and then 80% or less than that qualifies as low income. So you have to be low income. The second piece is that you have to demonstrate need, which means you are either spending more than 1/3 of your income on your housing, or you have an overcrowded situation, meaning that you have families of 4, 5, 6 living in a 1-bedroom apartment, or your housing can be substandard or unsafe. So like Rachel mentioned earlier, you might have mold, you might have repairs that a landlord is not making, you might have a pest infestation, which is a really common thing that we see. I will say almost everyone is a combination of all of the above that we see. Almost everyone is living in an overcrowded situation when they come to us. Almost everyone is living in some sort of substandard condition that is unsafe or unhealthy. And all of them are spending it more than 30% of their income on their housing. The final qualification is a willingness to partner with us. So that's a willingness to volunteer through our program. And usually that looks different for everyone, but it's usually volunteering on one of our construction sites to build your own home or the homes of your neighbors. Judy, yes, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this repair thing. One of the things that we see here on Capitol Hill in our neighborhood is a gentrifying neighborhood. Many of the people of color who live here are folks whose families have been here for generations. The incomes are not enough to maintain the home. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about, for these folks is that, and I don't think these are places that are necessarily at risk of being converted to, like there's, single townhomes or something like that. It's not, it can be turned into condos, but it's not like it's going to be, it's not like there's a whole lot of land there, right? But I worry about the family, right? I worry about the safety of the people, we have a member whose roof is leaking, and it's expensive to repair a roof, and so where do you get, where do you find the resources to do that? When you sell a home that's in disrepair, particularly like if you can't even like paint the front and get that sort of curb appeal, right? The family is losing out on potentially a huge amount of wealth, right? Like not even so the person is living in anyway. This is a problem that has really been confounding me. about what kind of resources are available to do the kind of upkeep and maintenance that will keep this expensive and valuable property earning what it should for the entire family, as well as keeping people in safe places for the rest of their lives. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that? It's really
yeah. So I don't like giving this. It's not an answer. It's a thought, as you said. Something that confounds me equally is any program like what Habitat is providing, like what Rebuilding Together is providing, is qualified on income. And that presents multiple challenges. The first challenge is you could be making 81% of area median income and not qualify for one of these programs. You could be $1 above the income limit and not qualify for these programs. And that leads me into my second, more foundational problem, which is when it comes to nonprofits in particular providing community services, especially around home repair and home maintenance, we presently have enough resource to do what needs to happen for survival, but not necessarily to thrive and to really flourish. And that shows up the most in home repair for us, because we are a partner in a program that is run by city and is a multi-partner program. And we, receive a scope of work and we go in and do that. Almost every house that we work in needs so much more done than what we're able to do. And I think that this is an issue that is not unique to Habitat. It's not unique to the program. It's not unique to our area. This is a problem with the culture of community services and how we, as a culture, value that community service, right? So when we talk about someone receiving service through a nonprofit program, usually we expect the nonprofit to be extra thrifty with those dollars. And as a result, that means that we need to limit severely the scope of what we're able to do so that we can serve as many people as we can. And that every dollar has to have a survival impact purpose, right? Like when we are, as nonprofits, funded by metrics and grant makers, and I'm sure you all see this in the work that you do too, when you're beholden to reporting back on how many lives you changed with your dollar, you want that to serve as many people as you can. And it doesn't report well to say, well, we helped someone have curb appeal so that their home has the actual value that it's supposed to have, because that doesn't feel like a survival thing.
Well, except that you did raise in the very beginning this 81 times the wealth differential, right? Yeah. And the number of people benefiting are the entire extended family, of this single individual who's living in this ramshackle home, who has survived all of this gentrification. And so I don't know if when we're talking about equity, I think we need to sort of reframe the conversation, and not let some of these funders sort of drive us, like maybe it is these racial equity funders that would actually it's a much better investment financially to fix up an existing, expensive, potentially valuable home, I think. But it's just, I'm not arguing with what you're doing. I'm just sort of like, it's just this problem. Like I've thought about trying to create, trying to find somebody to invest in a rotating, a revolving loan fund. Right? That gets paid back when the house sells for, twice as much as it would otherwise, then absolutely everybody benefits. But I don't know.
I think that you're raising a foundational problem to the work, right? And I think that it's on how the culture of philanthropy has been framed for so long. And it's, it prevents deep intervention when we are beholden to the spread of the number. So I completely agree with you. I think that it's a big thing to contend with. I will say for our part at Habitat, and something that I feel very passionately about, passionate enough to be recorded publicly while saying it, is we, we're grateful for every dollar, but we also, and I head up fundraising, so this is sort of the tone for how we do it over here. We very much feel that it is our responsibility to make funders true partners. They're not just funders. They need to understand our problems as much as they need to understand the problems of the families that we're serving. And this is a huge issue, right? Like, we've had funders who want, their pretty photo op, and they want to come out for their build day, and they feel really good about what they've done, but they don't quite have that level of deep understanding. And so we're trying to deepen that, and it's a slow process to get folks to sit down long enough to have that conversation. I'm sure you guys see it.
Well, I'm just wondering though, that if, Habitat is a large enough and credible enough organization to actually maybe shifts. I mean, when you're talking about like gentrification and sort of like the response to gentrification is to really like shoring up the ability of the longtime people who are at risk of being pushed out is actually, I think, a great investment in, wealth and racial and wealth equity. And I think that you guys might be in a great position to actually, be able to persuade somebody, some of these racial equity funders who are stepping up now, to be able to, to experiment, I mean, hey, we'll do it with you if you want to, if you want to do it, help find the people that could really benefit from this. And, we just had another person who wanted to sell her home and move into, because she was, getting tired of living in, in a home with stairs. She just, it was getting too hard for her. She wanted to move into assisted living, and discovered that her home, that she didn't have clear deed to her home, because and then there were 2 nieces or something, and, whatever, family members who wanted it, and she's stuck there.
Yeah.
Like these are this is the real life of, older people of color living in a gentrified neighborhood,
Yeah.
We're dealing with a lot of heirs problems. We see them all the time. It is, and Rachel, I know that you've been, doing some research and following some movement on hopefully upcoming legislation to sort of bridge that gap of like other ways that you can retain ownership, even though there were so many barriers to, titling certain things. But Habitat feels the same way. And we're trying to get behind it too. I will say I am seeing some promising moments for our area on the horizon. So Amazon Equity Fund, say what you will about Amazon. Their housing equity fund has made preservation their priority this year, and they're about to release, I think, $3.5 million to local servicers to do that work. And then you also have at the same time, the mayor's Black homeownership strike force, whose predominant findings were, if you want to get Black homeownership rates up, you need to invest in home repair for older Black adults. That is how you do it. So we're, the momentum is building there, and Habitat is part of that conversation. I certainly will say we are one of many that are part of that conversation. MANA is part of that conversation, and they're doing awesome work. Mikasa, same thing. Rebuilding Together, same thing. There are a lot of partners who are making it their job to make preservation happen here. But you're right, as we do it, we're finding these huge bumps in the road with these certain things, and it's sort of we just have to do them case by case and find an outcome such that it can be replicable for the next folks that have to deal with it.
We need you to join our team, Judy. Is what we as an advocate.
Hey, I'll come out. I'll talk about this stuff from,
Love that. Heck yeah. Jumping back to Judy and Mike Canning's question really quick. Our home repair program, Safe at Home in DC, we run our different partnership program in Northern Virginia. Safe at Home is applied to directly through DC city government. So you can go directly to the Department on Aging and Community Living and submit an application with them. And then they will get you started with that. Habitat does not do the intake on that. But for Northern Virginia, we do. So you can get in touch with us directly for home repair. And pretty much same qualifications, low income, demonstrated need, and then we pair you up with an occupational therapist and they come in and do an assessment of work.
If I can just say,
Go ahead, Judy.
I was going to say, if anybody in the village sort of world needs help with that or with that process, we have a connection with Safe at Home through, and also with other people who support that. So if for people who do need, even if they don't qualify for Safe at Home, we can help with that.
Right.
Awesome.
And my question is, especially with seniors, do you find that there is supportive extended family that might come in and put the sweat equity hours and help their aging in place mom or dad?
Yeah. So for home repair, we don't have a sweat equity requirement, but we do frequently, the call that we get is from a family member.
Right.
A lot of the folks, oh, no problem, Judy. Great to meet you. Great to see you. Thanks for joining. A lot of the calls that we get are from a family member who say, my mom needs help and she's not willing to ask for it.
Right.
And we do a lot of
they are involved
out.
to some degree. Yeah. Okay.
Frequently they are. But I will say a lot of the folks that we get in the program, a big reason why they are coming through the program is because they don't have local family as well. So you sort of see both ends. And I've had a lot of conversations with women in particular who have qualified for Safe at Home, who have told us, well, this is something that I should just be able to ask my son to do, but he's not here. And often people feel embarrassed to ask for that. And Safe at Home is an awesome way to overcome some of those obstacles, and also get to know, the folks who work in your neighborhood. Our staff member, Emma, she is so cool. First of all, she's a woman in construction, which is a huge win. And she will come out with her welding helmet and her gear and put, a new railing up, and she's awesome. And she has the time of her life working and meeting so many people in the line of work. So it's a really great program. And I encourage everyone all the time, if you don't need it, someone that does. Word of mouth is how people find out about it.
Right.
To your point about those who are volunteering, the families, it's been really neat to connect with them on site. Some of them, for example, we have a family whose the father's been coming out and was volunteering prior to even getting his home, and he wants to continue volunteering even after, just because he's enjoyed the process so much.
Right.
And he's been able to come out with his daughter too. It's Solomon and Abigail, and to see their dynamic on site is really cool, and to empower her. She's 16 years old and she's learning how to build a house, which is really cool. And then others will bring in their friendly neighborhood neighbor and just come volunteer together. Like we had one family member whose brother was visiting just for the week, and they were like, okay, come on, we're gonna get sweat equity hours together and build this house. So it really is a communal effort to all come together, and their hours count just as anybody's hours would towards that sweat equity. But it's cool to kind of involve the whole family in that process and build that partnership too. Yeah.
Okay.
I know we've touched on a lot of some of this already throughout, just as we've been discussing and opening up the floor. So we'll see if there's any other questions. We're really excited as we push forward. Our strategic goal by 2030 is to help 1,000 more families. So we're relying a lot on volunteers, donors, and other community partners to really make that happen. And it's been so great to be connected with you all and just share the mission and relay that education too, because we really can't do any of this alone.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's our contact information here. I'll
Great. Yeah.
share that with you all, just so you have that for reference.
Okay.
feel free to connect with us. We'd love to hear more about what you're experiencing too, as Kat said, on Capitol Hill, whatever you run into. That helps us understand the need more and more. So please be in touch if any other questions come up. Here's our social media. We also have our website at habitatdcnova.org. So if you want to connect further, please do that.
And also, I think we do have a newsletter. We have ongoing communications with our membership. And I think we'll find a little article in one of those. Copy you on that before publishing. So, and we'll get the contact information in that as well. So
That'll be
thank
great.
you. Keep up the good work. Yes.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. It was great to see you.
Thank you so much. It was a great talk. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for your time.
All right. Thank you. All right.
All right.
It's Fran and
Have a great night,
Tom.
everyone.